that if you have rentier capitalism, more and more you're going to be subject to crises. More and more, the financial crises and the chronic uncertainty with which we have to live is creating situations where the state and the financial institutions have to rescue finance and big corporations because they're too big to fail. If they fail, there would be repercussions for the whole economic system. And therefore, they bail them out, and in doing so, further increase the inequality unjustifiably, because the winners have not done anything to gain that extra. During the pandemic, governments doled out billions and billions of dollars and pounds and euros to prop up the system, and vastly increased inequalities, because the main gainers were the big corporations, the big financial institutions, and the elite and the plutocracy.
It's kind of a bit of a segue into the next thing I want to ask, which is, so, I just finished reading the Corruption of Capitalism. And, as I was reading that book, I was just feeling myself kind of slump further and further into my chair and be like, wow, this is like really heavy stuff. And one of the things that I had trouble reconciling with maybe kind of some of the pessimism of, the changing class structure and how people's, like a certain group of people's lot seems to be getting worse and worse, is that if you look at global statistics on living standards across the globe, so, be it child mortality, women's education, global poverty, all of those things, we've seen amazing advances in the last 20 years. And like, if you look into that data of those attainment statistics, how do you put that together with, some of the doom about saying that things are getting worse for so many people, when on the other hand, things in many places seem to be getting better?
Well, I don't know if you read the whole book, but the last chapter is meant to be the coming rebellion, and where I think there's a lot of scope for optimism. I think rentier capitalism has produced the circumstances where we are having pandemics, because we're treating nature just as making profits and just totally ignoring the need for preservation of balance with nature. It's leading to chronic inequalities, which produce tensions and ultimately produce wars. I wrote a book on Russia. In fact, I wrote two books, one on Russia and one on Ukraine, back in the 90s, early 1990s. And I said, you said in those books, so I'm not saying that wise after the event. I mean, it's actually in print, that the way that capitalism is being developed, we're going to have a kleptocracy and chronic inequalities where the deprivations are going to lead to a deep corruption, which is going to create civil strife. And the life expectancy plunged in those countries in the 1990s. The average life expectancy of a Russian fell from 64 to 58 in a few years. Life expectancy fell that much. You now have a situation in the United States where the average life expectancy has been declining, not rising. And that is echoed also in Britain. It's a situation which is accompanied where we have a pandemic of stress, where we have a situation where millions and millions of people are taking psychiatric treatments, okay? I saw some figures the other day that 1 in every 4 adults in rich countries is taking some sort of mental health treatment each year. That's not the sign of a healthy society. Your figures reflect the fact that China has emerged as a superpower, and life expectancy and incomes in China have shot up. And China is 1.4 billion people, and India is also moving in a positive direction in those terms. Okay. Now we have a situation where we have a retake of a crisis of the 1930s, if we're not careful, where you have a rising superpower, a declining one in the United States, and a situation where more and more the income is flowing to finance and rentiers. This is not a situation that's going to have stable outcomes if we're not careful. Trump is a phenomenon that stems from a rotten model, okay? A rotten model. He would not have emerged if the society was a healthy one, all right? And the fact that he is still super popular, I find totally terrifying, because you could have either Trump coming back or someone a little cleverer who will be a Trump Mark II. We are seeing these possibilities. They are not necessary. They're not necessary. If we could only understand that we need to dismantle rentier capitalism,